Hey everybody, good morning. January 10th here, reporting from Lake Havasu, Arizona, camping on some BLM land here. Marcel Irnie Racing News. CBC actually shows the footage and then they give their political commentary. It's so hilarious to watch this and see how they try to not talk about the assault, but talk about David Menzies' background and just it looks kind of odd, but we need to get more story on it. You guys are just going to laugh at this, CBC. And they do have comments, so maybe let's start out with a few comments on the newest ones here. CBC panelist opinions aside, let's everyone take a moment to thoroughly review the video footage. Clearly, you can see the two women walking along the sidewalk, which presumably for most pedestrians would be a clear path of travel. They have chosen to do so on the sidewalk along the building. The women are then approached by the journalist who is asking them questions as he sidesteps with his microphone to keep an eye on his path of travel. While keeping up with the woman to ask him questions moments before the altercation, you can see the woman on the left change her path of travel after looking at the officer, move his body position from between the curb and the pole, and then standing in the journalist's path of travel between the pool and the building. The officer then stiffens his posture while staging the altercation to be assault by slightly pushing his body weight into the journalist, and then, without even thinking twice and without a split-second thought, immediately grabs the journalist and attempts to make an arrest using a statement officers, bouncers, security detail, and others in enforcement are all well aware of and trained to use, which is stop resisting, or why are you resisting me, or don't assault me, or in this case, again, without even thinking about it, you're under arrest for assault. Keeping in mind this is a trained RCMP officer who looks fairly built, possibly 200 to 240 pounds, who already likely sized up the journalist as his job was to keep an eye on the two women. It was very inappropriate for the smirking of Freeland and her female aide. I would not like being harassed by reporters, but this was a practice maneuver to do a false arrest. Would the outcome have been more serious for the reporter if someone had not filmed the entire solution? One more, guys, then we'll get into it. Mainstream media does not realize that the majority of Canadians don't trust you and feel you are 100% biased, correct? Talking about CBC. PP calls out bogus questions and unsubstantiated media journalist claims, and he is attacking them. I'm surprised your panel didn't mention Trump-style politics while referring to Pierre Poilievre. Don't worry, it'll be written in your cue cards soon, I am sure. Let's get into the kind of the propaganda and how they try to play this story down.
About Iran. Here's what happened.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-nationalism? What? What are you doing?
Arrest for assault. Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault. You're under arrest for assault. Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me. You pushed into me. I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here and you just bumped into me. So Police, you're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge? What is your name and your badge? You've been told you're under arrest. Why am I under arrest? He blocked my way.
In a statement to CBC News, York Regional Police, who were assisting the RCMP security detail, wrote, "It was determined that no credible security threat existed, and the subject was released unconditionally shortly thereafter." Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has commented on the video on social media, writing, "This is the state of freedom of the press in Canada in 2024 after 8 years of Justin Trudeau."
Okay, so quick recap. We got Uncle Fester, this RCMP security detail, grabbing David Menzies, assaulting him, giving him a false arrest charge, saying, "I'm going to arrest you for assault," crying wolf, and then he's released without charge, of course, right? Setting up the pick maneuver, like a basketball maneuver, a football maneuver, standing in somebody's path and having the other opponent or the other teammate being able to go around while you block his path on a public sidewalk. So what I see right off the bat is that RCMP officer should be arrested and should be charged with assault. He should have an internal code of conduct investigation, oppressive conduct, neglect of duty, improper attitude. So let me know in the comments if you think Uncle Fester should be arrested and we should have a public trial. And why are we not revealing his name? He works for the public. He is an RCMP officer. Doesn't matter if he's a security detail for Trudeau or his lackeys or the WEF member who, was almost in line to be head of NATO. Most people don't know Chrystia Freeland was lined up to take the position, one of the top 4 candidates to be a head of NATO, replacing the previous. Like, this is what we're dealing with. And then she went the WEF and now into the MP route and liberal tyranny, right? So anyways, let's keep going.
Just received this statement from the RCMP. As publicly reported,
Tina ND just interjected. Also, she probably wasn't going to be the head of NATO anymore after it came out when we had the Nazi guy in Parliament, where then Chrystia Freeland sits silent, the head of CSIS sits silent, and the speaker takes the fall. But really, Chrystia Freeland's her grandfather, is a Nazi collaborator, full-on Nazi with that one group division that they all talked about. And, she's trying to cover up her whole family history, but it's...
She was even saying how she was... it said that she presented her grandfather as a war victim on the Holocaust Remembrance Day. She said that, this war is terrible and it affected her so much. My grandfather was a war victim. And that's pretty sick if she knew her grandfather, was a Nazi supporter. He was apparently run by German intelligence out of Krakow and the propaganda division for the Nazis. And he used he had a press or a printing press
company
that he got from one of the Jewish people who were exterminated, and basically told everyone through there that they must exterminate the Jews. So it's pretty gross.
So essentially the property of people that were taken, Jewish, or the 11 million people that were killed, their property was seized, and their printing press was one of those properties seized, and then it was given to Freeland's family, and then that they used the printing press to promote propaganda about let's exterminate more people.
And I think she was always constantly referring to her grandparents as her political influences and her political identity. So anyways, when it all came out, I think they decided, I don't know what happened with the whole NATO thing, but yeah, I don't think she's in line anymore for it. And then one other thing was she also said that it was Russian misinformation at the beginning, and then one of her actual family members, who was an academic, outed her because she actually told her family member about her grandfather, and then when she was saying how it was misinformation from the Russians, he outed her and let people know that her grandfather was involved in this.
Yeah, she acted like she didn't know anything, even though she clearly would have the whole time when she's playing the sympathy card on the other side of it, right? Anyways, guys, that's Dr. Tina ND. She's just doing her work over there while I'm doing my work over here with you guys. Let's keep going on the CBC slanted news stories, propaganda. And just before we get back into it, this quote summarizes this whole panel discussion on CBC. Great panel turned talking about this arrest into a discussion about this reporter's past and what Pierre Poilievre said. Not a mention of Freeland's non-answer or the questions about the reporter. Not an employee, as CBC calls him. We got a bird outside.
Were involved in an incident while deployed on a protective operation. The RCMP is looking into the incident and the actions of all parties involved. No further comment is available at this time. Now, Rebel News says it may sue both police forces and Minister Freeland. Did the police overstep here? Time to bring in the power panel. Emily Nicola is a columnist with Le Devoir. Vanguard Strategy CEO Michel Cadario is here, as is Matthew Dubé, Vice President of Proof Strategies and a former NDP MP. And here with me in the studio is Kate Harrison, a Vice Chair.
Seriously, where do they get this power panel from? What a bunch of CBC hillbillies, right?
Look, there's a lot going on here. This is not the first time David Menzies has been arrested. He was arrested for harassing, allegedly, Melissa Lanceman, a Conservative MP, a candidate at the time, and there's a whole bunch of things about Rebel News that we can get into.
This is so crazy because he almost said David Lindsay, who was arrested in Kelowna, charged with assault, and actually convicted of 2 counts of assault for just security guards blocking his path to enter a public building, the Interior Health in Kelowna. That was David Lindsay, guys. Make sure you check it out on my Irnie channel. And now we have David Menzies. It's almost the same thing. Crazy. Okay, let's keep going.
This conversation. But Michelle, I just want to start with you. You worked with Paul Martin. The RCMP security detail was around him when he was Prime Minister. Very different media environment than the one we're dealing with now. What did you make of what we saw in that video?
Before she speaks, any guesses if she's actually going to talk about the assault and what we see on the video, or is she going to just talk about the history of this news reporter and then to try to defer the assault being, well, you know, it doesn't look that good. You know, is she going to like do a Freeland and talk forever without saying anything? Here we go.
Well, you know, I think we have to remember there's got to be room for everybody to be able to do their job. Certainly, journalists need to be able to do their job. The protective detail have a job to do as well, as do the politicians. My experience with the Prime Minister's detail was that they were the absolute epitome of responsibility. They took their job very seriously, and they also appreciated that that there had to be interaction with the candidate and the Prime Minister and people, the regular public, as well as journalists in that. And they always made...
Boom, let's interject there right there. Well, in our experience with the security detail, all of the public of Canada who's watching on the independent media, we've seen the exact opposite of that. And anybody who has experience with the RCMP firsthand on the bad side of their tyranny or creating of problems or false arrests, etc., has a different opinion, Miss Power Panel. Pretty ridiculous.
Room for that. So there was also certainly times when there was higher threat levels. And those aren't things that are made public, but at those times, you know, it was a bit of a closer box around the Prime Minister or around whoever they're going to do. So, you know, we don't know.
And what does that have to do with David Menzies? You're talking Maloney. It has nothing to do with this situation whatsoever. There was no high security threat. There's just always a security threat for Freeland and Trudeau because everybody in Canada and the world sees what they're doing and absolutely disdains them, hates them. We all do.
What was there? It is, you know, interesting to note that the only journalist who's ever been arrested is this one from the Rebel, who, you know, has, and the last time they did it was to Melissa Lansman, a Conservative MP.
Okay, so she's still not talking about the actual assault or what we see on video. She's talking about Menzies' past, as if that matters, right? CBC.
And so, you know, that's interesting detail as well about perhaps how he's conducting his business. From what we saw of the video, it was, as a layperson, it seems...
Come on, spit it out. She's doing a Freeland. She's trying to talk without talking.
Not something that one would think someone will get arrested for, I'll say.
What?
But we also don't have the full context, and I guess that will come out as the RCMP review it.
Right,
so that means no comment on the actual video for this CBC Power Panel. What a layman.
Emily, look, Menzies, the Rebel, they're not part of the Parliamentary Press Gallery, though the Conservatives have been demanding that the Parliamentary Press Gallery take a position on this today. They would not...
You mean the Liberals don't let journalists get near them? You mean they control the journalists? They're like only the CBC propaganda? Where have we seen this? I swear we've seen this in other countries where like you have to be a registered journalist with their political view, their control to be near them.
Be defined as a mainstream journalistic organization. They sometimes, they
mainstream, you mean paid for and bought?
They push to create controversy and then they fundraise on this. But Emily, what he did there in the video that we see, he's just walking along.
They fundraise on controversy that's created not by them, but the RCMP and Trudeau and Freeland because they don't get any money subsidized from the government? What?
Asking a question. I've done this many times in my career. I assume you've done this many times in your career. And he bumps into a police officer and then is arrested for assault. So all the issues with Rebel media aside, what the police did there, what's your sense of that? He's just asking a question. He bumps into somebody and then he gets handcuffed and taken away.
I think there is a
Oh, this is going to be good.
There's so many different things that need to be taken into consideration. It's true that what we see in the video, he's walking toward her. He did arrive very fast in a way that can make a person feel,
What? He walked very fast. Oh my God.
jumpy. And that's probably part of what happened. And if you make a person feel jumpy and they see you there with Rebel News and they don't, consider you a real journalist, they might
Oh, they're not a real journalist because they're not paid and bought?
escalate more than if they saw a CBC mic. That might
You mean when they see their friendly mic that they own?
have been part of the because it happens in a snap, a couple of seconds of what happened. There is a way for security to make sure that a person leaves an elected official personal space while they're asking questions without arresting them. And that's not what
Did we have personal space when you took away our medical autonomy and try to force these, force everybody down with injections? Anyways, guys, we got to take a break right now because Dr. Tina behind me, she needs to do some of her calls, and we're 15 minutes in, 16. So we'll come back and continue with this power panel, CBC. This is Irnieracing News, guys. Like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned for part 2 of the CBC power panel on David Menzies' arrest and release.